cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I got to give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Our league, check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
And best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
And you're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go and roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right cause I roll my sleeves up.
What up? What up? What up, world? We are back. I'm Anthony, aka Rasta, and this is Get Right Fantasy Network. And we're here for another Friday Night Mocks episode for you. It's Friday. It's the last day of the month. We ain't got no job. We got nothing else to do but mock. So let's go. What's up, Classic? How you doing? How you doing tonight, man?
Hey, man. Oh, I'm excited too, man. I've been waiting all week for this. You know, we've been talking about it all week, waiting for this particular show. I cannot wait. I'm excited.
Let's get it done, man. We have our two guests here, man. They're not even guests anymore. They're just part of the Get Right crew. We had our boy Phil dropping his first episode here on Get Right Fantasy Network last night. You can find him over on the Extra Point. We got our boy Phil Ruskin over here. And then always glad to have our boy Kendall here from the Fantasy Football Tavern, man. How you guys doing? Happy Friday.
We are doing good, man. I just got back from vacation. You guys,
dude,
how was
it? I've been fishing all week, doing the outdoors thing. It's been good. The thing I realized though, I'm up to 2 kids now. First vacation with the 2 kids, and I went from like at least checking Sleeper once in a while to like, man, it's just a dangerous game. Your phone's gonna get taken. You don't want none of that. So I have been deprived. 0 mocks, 0 trades all week. I'm like an addict. I'm a little
whoa.
Oh man,
he's going to be hyper focused tonight. I'm worried.
He's going
and I'm drafting right after him. This is going to be awful for me here. What's up, Phil, man? How you doing? Happy debut
boys?
Last night, man.
Appreciate it. Big shout out to the crew. Appreciate the shouts and the love. If y'all didn't have a chance to check it out, go jump on the Extra Point on YouTube. You can follow me there. You can find me on Instagram, _extrapoint_FFB. Catch the show from last night. I will be live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Pacific. Enough about me. Let's do this mock, boys. Let's get into it.
Let's get it started, man. Let's just draw it up. Classic. Let's get it going. It's time to roll those sleeves up, boys. And let's get this mock started. Tonight, we are doing our last Dynasty startup Superflex draft. We're doing 2 wide receiver, 3 flex this time?
No, 3 and 2.
3 and 2? Okay, so there we go. 3 wide receiver, 2 flex in your Superflex, of course. 14 total rounds is what we'll get through here. So while we're getting this thing started, you still have the sound on there, Classic.
I turned it off.
All right. So yeah, you got your pick here. So I'll just tell the folks what we got going on, man. For anyone new here to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe here as he gets CJ Stroud going, I'm sure. So Friday Night Mocks is what we're doing here throughout the off season. We come back and we actually break down and grade the mocks, give you our feedback on roster construction, kind of strategies, how you put the teams together on Monday nights. And then of course you'll catch Phil here on Thursday nights. Kendall's going to be starting his show soon. We're going to have Tycoon doing his show soon. Soon we're just going to have Get Right for you guys, man, all the time. We're so excited to have all this going here. So yeah, we're going to finish up here. We're going to start next month, starting out with some Scott Fishbowl mocks, man. So if you guys aren't aware of Scott Fishbowl, make sure you guys go check it out, scottfishbowl.com. Make sure you signed up, man. It's a great charity tournament, something great to be a part of. So we're definitely going to support that here. And just so you guys know, got a big announcement. We got the okay to give out a golden ticket. So we will be giving out a golden ticket into the Scott Fishbowl here in June. So make sure you guys tune in. Make sure you're subscribed here. go follow fantasycares.org over on X. Make sure you're there watching the Fantasy Cares YouTube. Yep, SFB merch came out as well. So it should be a lot of fun. Yeah, we got 30 seconds. Yeah, you go ahead. You take over. Let me see who I'm going to take here. Either between CD. How do we want to go here, guys? How do we want to do this?
You think about it, and I'll tell everybody else. July.
I heard Zach Wilson's available.
Oh, perfect. I'll take him. Boom.
Yeah, there you go.
Joey B. Let's get her done. Big D Joe. All right. So where are we at, Classic? What else have we got going on here? Why don't you make our another big announcement? We got some other guests coming on in the month of June.
I was going to say, do you want to wait on that?
No, man. Let's drop it now. We got to promote it so we get a crowd coming in, man.
I hope you guys are going to be joining us a little bit later this month. Next week, we have a very special guest. Jim Coventry is going to be joining us next week. Really excited about that. Me and Tycoon are going to have Jim on here. So we're going to be doing a mock with him. Most likely going to be Scott Fishbowl. We're waiting for the scoring. That's the big thing right now.
Subject to change.
Waiting. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But for now, we're going to have Jim Coventry next week. We're going to have an earlier show, just so everybody's aware. It's going to be at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And we're also going to have Lindsay Rhodes the week after June 14th. We're going to have her on with me and Tycoon as well. We're going to, same time, actually, both wanted to do a little bit earlier. So we are going to have them a little bit earlier. And they're both going to be in a mock. We're going to do most likely Scott Fishbowl, definitely with Lindsay. I think she's in it, if I remember correctly. I have to double check my math. But we're going to be doing those. July, we're going to be switching over the redraft and then rotating formats, 1 QB, Superflex, doing 1 and 2 wide receivers. We're going to mix it up and try to give you guys a nice variety of everything. Little side note for the Scott Fishbowl. We're not going to randomize. Normally, we randomize 3 times before we get started. This, for Scott Fishbowl, is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to randomize, and it's really just because everyone has their spot. They want to know what they want to, they want to know what they're mocking at that point. So we're going to keep spots. We're probably going to open it up. Rossi, you probably have more people in that Discord that you know, and you can probably pass them along to. So we're going to be doing that as well. And then, like Ross said, Mondays we're going to break it down and show you, tell you what we think. So
perfect. Well done there.
Yes,
all right,
sir.
so let's switch gears with all the promos and stuff here. So we got a lot of stuff coming for you guys here in the off season. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button for us. So yeah, let's get into this mock, man. Enough of us talking here. Let's hear a little bit of Kendall and Phil here. Phil, you went no QB here in the Superflex, which you're a fan of here. So Amon-Ra, Bijan Robinson, give us kind of your thoughts there.
Yeah, my thoughts, to be honest, I'm in a couple of Superflex drafts right now that are obviously going on later rounds, round 5, 6, 7, 8. And look, it's not my favorite place to be at the turn. Obviously, you could see at the board, the quarterbacks are going to go pretty early. I stared down Jordan Love here over Bijan for a while to try to give myself a quarterback, but we'll see what happens in this mock. It's a mock, obviously. I'm not super concerned with, what this looks like. I do want to create some realism for the folks that are watching and listening. Kyler Murray's been pretty available in the 3rd. I've got Amon-Ra. I feel pretty confident I can get Jordan Love at the turn here. Oh, excuse me, Jared Goff. Sorry, I was talking about Jordan Love earlier. Jordan Love will not be coming back to me. I can promise you that.
Right. Hey, and I know, like on the other show, I think I said Antonio Brown instead of AJ Brown. So
yes,
it happens to the best of us. I caught that when I was listening back. So go ahead.
One plays football and the other, gosh, I don't know what he does these days.
He's playing something.
Yeah. But I feel pretty good about Jared Goff getting back to me a little bit later to try to stack with Amon-Ra. And the other pieces, I wasn't afraid to start. Obviously I've got a hero in what I think is the wide receiver 4 in the NFL with Amon-Ra, and I've got my hero RB build. So if I need to try to grab a quarterback and kind of punt running back down later in the draft, it gives me two alphas at what I feel at those positions to then try to build around for the rest of the draft.
Very nice. So I like we got one of us here going with a alternative build. I'm coming in here with a QB wide receiver build. As you guys know, I like to fill out those wide receivers, especially in a 3 wide receiver league. And of course, I like having my anchor QB as well. Here out of the 8 spot, kind of gives me a little bit of flexibility. So we'll see what happens there. And then we have our boy Kendall here going A-Rich, as we know. I think you said you'll grab him almost at what, like the 104-ish, 105. If you're there, you'll still grab him. So
4 or 5 is
4 or 5, right?
There for me.
Yeah. And then you go with the Brees Hall. So you go QB RB here. So tell the folks about the different start there with that hero RB.
Yeah, so anytime in these middle like 105 through 108 ish range, I feel like I'm always taking a quarterback there 100%. I'm just not a big wide receiver in the first round guy. As much as I've done mocks, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just I found that with the way I like to build my teams, there's a couple of age cliffs at quarterback that I'm just not super comfortable with, and I feel like I get boxed out of some opportunities. I'll run out of a tier and just be in a weird spot where I don't really feel as comfortable. So I'm kind of an always grabbing QB in round 1, and I'm gonna load up. And this is this particular year in 2024. I like so many of the rookie wide receivers in so many of the rounds that I tend to just solve the tricky positions a little bit early and then go on 4 or 5 wide receivers in a row. And I guess so. I made a spreadsheet of like, here's every single running back that I'm comfortable drafting, and everyone else. There's not even 8 running backs on it. There's so many that I just hate. The way I typically play Dynasty is I almost never draft even a contending team in year 1. I might luck into it, but I always want to know what the rest of my league is going to look like and what my roster is going to look like in the first couple of weeks, who busts, who doesn't, and then solve, maybe if I'm contending more than I thought, I feel like I can always buy a Devontae Adams or something like that to round out a position, kind of an aging vet to go for a full push. And so with that in mind, there's just so many running backs that I don't want to take, because if I'm not contending, they're going to be a wasted pick in so many spots. So because of that, if I have a chance to grab one of the big 3 and go superhero RB, it allows me to not have to take another one until, for me at least, maybe the 6th to 7th round, I've got some targets. Then after that, 10 through 13 rounds, I kind of like targets there. So that's just kind of why Brees Hall for me, let me clarify, I have Garrett Wilson and Neighbors and Love and Kyler Murray ahead of Brees Hall in my Dynasty rankings, but it's just a build structure thing where I think I can make that value back up later on.
And that's fair points to say. You don't have to just go strictly down your rankings. So I like that you mentioned that there. Go ahead, Classic, read that off.
Oh, I was just giving Ron his time in the sun.
His moment?
Yeah, just
all right. What's up, moment. Ron? Glad to have you, bro.
What's up, Ron? Always love having Ron Swanson here. He just said, just give me all the bacon and the eggs. I love it. I love having Ron here. Always taking up the persona. I love it.
I want to piggyback off something that Kendall just said, because it's really intuitive, and I think a lot of people get panicked when they say Superflex quarterbacks are going to get pushed up the board. And that's true. They are going to get pushed up the board. But I think what people forget is, number one, 66 quarterbacks played last year, started a game. Yep. That's not what you want to see. But at the end of the season, if you had said, hey, Joe Flacco is probably going to be on championship rosters, you would have laughed at that in week 3, 4, 5. By the end of the season, you couldn't trade for Joe Flacco, even if you were in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield's gross. Nobody wants Baker Mayfield on their team. Nobody's excited about drafting Baker Mayfield. It honestly makes you feel like you need a shower when you click that button.
I'm okay with it.
Well, you're the only one. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. And if there's Buccaneers fans, I do apologize. But my point is that nobody is fighting for Baker Mayfield, right? No one's fighting for Baker Mayfield.
No.
But the guy finished as a QB1. Right? Whether there was a bunch of guys ahead that got injured and didn't end up playing the season, or whether Baker just had a great season. And statistically, it was his best season he's ever had in the league. But that's a guy you can get in the late rounds that nobody's going to be trading for. Because remember, when we do these mocks, there's no trades that are happening here. And that's the other thing to consider when you're actually going through a snake draft, is the trades are going to start flying off the board. No one is trading you for Baker Mayfield. So it doesn't feel great. Of course, we'd all rather have Richardson or Burrow or one of the running quarterbacks, but you can go and compete for a championship with your skill position players being better than everyone else's, and a quarterback who's not sexy, but is still going to produce quality QB2 and potentially backdoor QB1 numbers. So it's just something to keep in mind. To Kendall's point, if you do get boxed out of that top quarterback group, you can find value later in the draft.
Oh, for sure. And you're going to be probably finding it right here unless Lord gets you.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I mean, I honestly, I was going to screw you at one. I wanted to at the 3-3, you know, just because that's how I usually am. I like having those, I have see, he did it right
So
there.
that's interesting. Lord of Fanta taking Jared Goff over Dak Prescott to get a stack with CD Lamb. Right now, maybe he has a strong take, right? So yeah, maybe he clicked the wrong button. Maybe he got that itchy trigger finger. But yeah,
or maybe he saw you had St. Brown and wanted to block that,
Yeah,
and maybe
that's what
say
it was.
maybe you wouldn't go for the stack
Yeah, that's
and
what I
go
was
with a
thinking.
different guy, so he
Yep.
can actually get Goff and Dak.
Lord
That's
is
high level right there.
He's taking Dak at 4-2 though. For sure.
I'm taking Dak.
Yeah.
So yeah,
He's like, that's not going to happen.
that's not going to.
Yeah, he'll let him go to the 4th just to get the value.
Not
Yeah.
today.
And shout out to Lord of Fanta, man. When we first met Lord of Fanta,
Love Lord.
his name was actually Lord of Fantasy, but it actually cut off the rest of it, and all we saw was Fanta.
Yeah.
So we started calling them that, Lord of Fanta instead of Lord of Fantasy. And he ended up actually just changing it officially and changed his little icon too. So he's been with us, man, for a long time.
Forever.
And we also have one of the 4 horsemen here. One of our first 4 subscribers, our boy Cowbeck24 here in the 2 spot. Shout out to the Cowbeck in the Get Right Fantasy Dynasty League as well. That was started year 1 here, still going strong. So shout out to him and his build over there, going Josh Allen, Tyreek Hill, Jonathan Taylor. So he has that nice thing going over there. But yeah, I just want to give a little extra shout out to him as well. And I saw you there, Ravery. Shout out to the Scott Fishbowl over there, man, 109. So we'll make sure you get in there next Friday in that 109 spot. And yeah, hopefully there's no 2 3s or 4s because Classics 2, I'm 3, and Tycoons 4. So that should be interesting in our mocks. I'm stuck right in the middle of these 2 guys.
To the 2s.
These knuckleheads.
So we got,
and then we said what's up to Albert too. I got to say what's up to Albert. Oh, we got Season in here too. Let's go. It's like a show from year 1 right now, man. We got all the OGs out here tonight. Appreciate it. Keep it coming. So I'll throw this off to you, Kendall, because I know you're kind of probably the high guy here on May. Dak or May and Dak or May and Stafford. Which side you taking there?
Oh, I'm taking May and Stafford for sure there. But I will say this is a little bit of team build. But because if you are contending now, I think Stafford it can put up. Dak really went crazy. He went pretty nuclear the second half of last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to be good. I think that we don't see that crazy Dak all the time. I'm used to seeing at least a pretty consistent floor with upside from Stafford, and I like his weapons. So the fact that May plus Stafford gives you upside with contending now, and you could flip May for a trade piece, and you're basically getting Stafford plus whatever you want May to be on a contending roster. I'm also taking that side for the flexibility and total value. It kind of hits both sides of that.
Very nice. And total bad move on my part for making my quick pick while you're in the middle of a take. I should have ate up a little more clock for you.
I got my cue ready to go.
Well,
Mr. Don flicked over here. Me and him are not friends.
For Season's comment though, I'll tell you in a real world scenario, I was at the 102 in a startup the other day. I took Patrick Mahomes, obviously at the 102.
Mm-hmm.
I took May. I don't remember where I took him, but I ended up getting Stafford this morning because Stafford is my QB2 in that league until Drake May is ready. So real world scenario, it works, right? Stafford's got 1 year for sure, maybe 2 left. I'm very comfortable with Patrick Mahomes and Matt Stafford as my 2 quarterbacks while I let Drake May develop.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I just had that choice when I was just here on the clock. I had McCarthy or May. We kind of talked about that last time.
Yep.
Actually, Kendall, you'll probably be proud of me in that Dynasty startup I'm doing right now. I actually took Drake May over McCarthy there too. Real Money League. I know, Phil, you saw that probably.
Yeah.
So your take got to me. I had Kendall in the back of my head. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this thing a shot here with May. He made some really good points. Let me see what happened and see if he can kind of overcome that situation. So I'm trying to get the Belichick stank off the New England Patriots, and maybe they might be a fantasy relevant team this year. So obviously I'm putting money on that'll happen. Hopefully here in the near future, maybe not this year. My team's pretty young there. But we'll see what develops there. So So I kind of like that as well. I like getting that younger quarterback and someone similar can put up similar numbers with similar type weapons. There with Stafford. You the same way, Classic, or you sticking with Dak?
I don't mind either, but I would probably stick more with Dak if it's contending and if I'm rebuilding going to May and Stafford. I like Stafford a lot overall. I mean, I think he's going to be fine with Puka and Cup. Cup had an off year last year. Everyone saw it. Everyone, he still wasn't. I mean, Puka still did very well, but you could see that Cup was just a little off. I hope that changes this year. I really do. I do think that he is a incredibly solid quarterback in general. Sorry, I was talking about Cup and then went to him. Cup is a solid wide receiver. He'll be fine. I think Stafford is getting a little long in the tooth, but can still sling it. They just got to get him protected. And the only way that you can do that is run the ball. And if they can run the ball with who they got with Blake Corum and, Kyron Williams, I think they'll be just fine. I think Stafford May is good for that.
Yeah. And don't they have that rookie tight end last year that kind of what is his name, like Parkinson or Park something, Cody
no,
something?
It's David,
not Cody Parkinson. That was the dude from Seattle. I think it's something similar than that, but yeah,
I'll get it in a second.
He kind of popped off.
Davis Allen, that's who it was. Davis Allen.
No, it wasn't that.
You sure it ain't him? Because I'm like almost 90% sure.
Was it? Oh yeah. That's who it was. Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, he's there now. That's who it is. Parkinson came over now, but yeah, Allen I think might be a good. I don't think I've seen him go in any draft, so that might even be a sneaky little tight end for you zero tight end folks out there as well. One of those Donald
free.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's like one of those the take a penny leave a penny tight ends, as I call them, that are just on the waiver wire every week.
Yeah, I mean I can go over 100 different ones.
Just insert any tight end there, and that's why I don't mind the position. All right, so what else we got going on here?
So we have Calbeck go. The Classic pushed the wrong button. I need a defense on Cook over Barkley. So here's my little thing about Cook over Barkley. I have no problem with Barkley. He's a little long in the tooth in the context of he's older. 2, I think that Buffalo will be more of a run-heavy offense and using James Cook a lot more often. They used him pretty much all the time. Last year, near the end of the season, you could see that he was getting a majority of the carries and touches. And it was right after they changed over offensive coordinator. So for me, I'm all on board with that. Barkley might get a couple of situations where he might get more touchdowns here and there to save Hurts just because, he's built that way. But overall, for long term, this is a dynasty league. I like James Cook for the long haul comparatively to Barkley, who has maybe 2 or 3 years at the most. And, in dynasty, we think 2 or 3 years out. Cook, I think, can last a little bit longer and I can get more value for him.
And hopefully you get to increase in targets. I mean, that's what we're hoping at as well. I know, Phil, you mentioned it yesterday on your show, 241 vacated targets in that offense.
Yeah.
That's
part of it too.
And I think to that point, right? Look, I think we're all hoping that Keon Coleman comes in and becomes an alpha / absorbs a lot of that vacated targets. Oh yeah, I figured you knew, but
just make sure you get out of it though.
But look, I think Keon Coleman's still a rookie, right? And he had some holes in his profile coming out of school, Florida State. I think I've got a lot of shares of Keon Coleman. I believe in him. I like Josh Allen. Obviously, we all do. I think he's going to be a good player for them. But I think for this season, you're going to see an uptick in targets for Dalton Kincaid and James Cook. I think they're the big winners of the Stephon Diggs trade.
Agreed.
The caveat, and I'll say this, Mike, to just kind of play the other side of the card for Ethan's comment here. James Cook has 4 rushing touchdowns in 2 seasons. And that's the part I think that's the part that maybe scares people off of him is we know he's a between the 20s guy. Saquon Barkley's going to have that touchdown upside regardless of whether Jalen Hurts is doing the tush push. So I'm not saying it's a bad pick by any means. I've got a lot of shares of James Cook, but I think if you're looking at a 2-year window, who's going to score more touchdowns? Probably Barkley. Probably.
The counter argument. I just want to make a quick counterpoint on that. I think the fact that he finished wide receiver or RB12 and PPR only scoring two rushing touchdowns is actually pretty impressive. It shows that there could be some upside
100%.
there.
100%.
So again, just on another side of that.
Well,
spectrum there too.
And that was where I was going, is that honestly, it's one of those scenarios where I think he's going to have positive touchdown regression. It's just going to, he might only had 4 this year, but it was mainly because of Josh Allen taking over there. They brought in guys like Damian Harris who thought they could do it, Latavius Murray, all that stuff, because they're bigger builds and so on and so forth. I still think that he has the ability to take over that particular role, because what did they do? They brought in Leonard Fournette and then he's gone. They barely used him in general. I think he's going to be heavily used, and it's not going to be a problem. He'll have more opportunity.
And yeah,
I know you did.
He was the only one I had in my queue. That's why I was like, wait, how come I was like, why didn't I at least just get Kincaid? And yeah, of course, you got me again, just the other way around this time.
We'll work a trade out for Kincaid before the draft.
There you go.
Something, man. You just got me again. I keep trying to sneak that Kincaid pick in there. One day when I'm not drafting next to you, I will have Kincaid.
Throw me Kyron and a 2025 2. Right?
A third, and it's a deal.
A second and a third, yeah.
No. I'll give you a 25 and a 26 third. And Kyron
and 2/3.
Lord, if you're listening, don't pick yet.
I can't do it, man. I can't do the 3. You move it up to 3/3. Move it up to Kyron and 3/3 on there.
Nah. Hold on. I'll trade you someone I get down here like later. Someone.
Yeah, we'll go player. We'll go player for player.
Yeah, we'll get down there.
So
once we got more players.
Are we pick trading? Give me your
Come on, Don.
Give me Kyron in your 10th.
If it was like a receiver, if it was like a receiver instead of like Kincaid, because again, I'm still not that, like, if it was maybe somebody else who was really big on tight ends, like I probably would go for the second, but like for me, the 2/3 is where I'd pretty much draw the line.
So I'll actually jump in.
But I would take the tight end over the running back in this specific build.
Because I know some people in the chat are like Lord of fans is like, damn, double tight end, right? There's I think this is a particular year in a time.
Oh, they're not used to it. That's why
I think. Yeah. So I draft my startup strategy is always accumulation of assets, and I plan on trading. There's probably 5 or 6 picks that I make that I'm picking to then trade them. I'll keep them for sure, but I think the market is in a particularly good spot for them. And when I look at you just go and keep trade cut, and you look at the value that you can get for these top end tight ends right now, when you kind of feel like you either have a top tier or you don't. The top tier is big. It's like Kincaid, McBride, Laporta. Normally there's like tiers. Everyone's just like, it's either one of those guys and everybody else. And you're getting a full like first and second plus level of value for a position that's sometimes kind of irrelevant. And I just want to like make sure I'm in on that while I can. Oh man,
and I can agree with that. I mean,
that is crazy.
You're talking to the one guy that loves having more tight ends on his dynasty roster than most people, and it's really because I have no problem flexing them in every so often when it can fit what I'm doing. You know, normally I look at the defense to try to figure out who is going to be covering who. Most teams don't have stud, safeties to cover those guys or stud linebackers to do it either, and they find a way. And they usually get them a little more involved. And you see it throughout the years. You've seen history trends with these particular teams. Anytime you face the Giants, just put in the tight end that's facing them. I can tell you that. I don't have to do. I can tell you exactly who to play. Just play the guy that's facing the Giants, because that's what happens. That's my whole thing. Like, you pretty much just have to do that. Like it. At this point, it's very clear that I can find different matchups to work in the way that I need to in certain scenarios to fit my flex spot. And normally I'll go for the guy that gets the most targets, or I would aim for guys like Evan Ingram and who are getting a ton of receptions to basically be a wide receiver too, and be helpful throughout that particular bye week or whatever. So I have no problem with the dual. I like the bully tight end, enjoy it, and especially in those two bully tight ends. You get two guys that are going to be heavily targeted. These are full PPR, so I have no problem with that.
No, another thing to mention about like how to make bully tight end work from a roster construction standpoint, because if you have a value set, and it's not that I plan on drafting a certain way, but at this stage and how I do a billion of these drafts, and I've seen every way the ADP can kind of fall in different types of rooms. So you could say conventional wisdom says in a 3 wide receiver league, you're using a very early pick, a top 5 round pick on essentially a flex play that can't even be into, an RB or wide receiver spot. That has to be a little bit of a mistake. The way I'm playing with a hero RB strategy and how little running backs I plan on taking, I'm only going to take a few dart throws on a serviceable RB2. So I am never going to have an RB in my flex ever. It's either going to be my tight end 2 or a wide receiver. But the way my roster construction is, it's going to be a wide receiver, but honestly, Kincaid is going to be my immediate starting flex almost every week, unless somehow I hit on so many wide receivers that's the situation I'm in, which would be fantastic. But that's the idea there. Is I'm almost never going to have an RB there. I'm not going to have enough RBs to have one worthy of putting up there. And so that's where it's almost taking a spot of an RB on my roster, if you want to think of it that way, where I'm going to take 3 other RBs. Hopefully one of them can be a serviceable RB2. And I'm doing that instead of taking, I don't think Kyron's bad there. I don't think Walker is bad there. I'm if I'm not taking Kincaid there, I am taking a wide receiver just based on my rankings. But you could easily see Walker going still at ADP at the 5-7. And I'm kind of, again, I would rather take a flex play there that has much higher trade value. Like, who has higher trade value? If I'm taking Walker at the 5-7 versus Kincaid, I think right now Kincaid has significantly more trade value. Significant, maybe a full second round of value above him. But still, I think most of the guys after him are going for like a first and a third, but I don't think most people after them are going for a first and a second plus, where I think Kincaid can.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I think the other thing too, and people have to understand this with your build, Kendall, you're talking about 2 tight ends that are basically the wide receiver 2 for their team.
Yes,
agreed.
And that's I think where people start to get a little bit like, I'm going to say something here, and I know it's not a hot take, but it is a challenging take. TJ Hawkinson to me is not the wide receiver 2 on his team anymore.
Right.
That's still Jordan Addison. And I understand Hawkinson's coming off an ACL. He may not be healthy for the first month of the season, but Justin Jefferson's obviously the alpha of alphas. But I think Jordan Addison showed enough last year that I believe in him. If we see enough out of JJ McCarthy this year, that we can feel confident that he's still going to be a valuable wide receiver too. So to me, it's like, where am I finding like Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce historically in their heydays when they were putting up wide receiver, overall wide receiver 2-3 finishes comparable to what the wide receivers were putting up? Well, they were the de facto wide receiver 1s for their team.
Yeah.
So like, to me, Sam Laporta is really interesting this season because I think Sam Laporta is going to be great. I think he's going to have maybe not a repeat of tight end 1 overall, but I think he's still going to post great numbers. The question really for me with Laporta is Jameson Williams really going to take the step forward the way that Dan Campbell's talking about? Because we've seen, right, what Gibbs is going to be able to do in terms of catching the ball out of the backfield. We know that Amon-Ra is clearly the alpha. So to me, it's like, if we're taking targets or we're taking opportunity away from Laporta, is Jameson Williams inheriting that? So I'm not saying anything against Laporta. Please draft him he should be the number 1 tight end off the board. But I think when you evaluate tight ends, it is important to look at where you feel their pecking order is in terms of the receiver core within that team.
Understood. And I still think that Laporta could be the number 2 and still have JMO work because of how he is on the field. I mean, JMO is mostly 9 route. Like, he's downfield, he's the deep ball. And, Laporta is more underneath, more the touchdown guy. You're not going to, they're going to both, I wouldn't say they're not going to cancel each other out, but they're going to definitely be even with one another when it comes to certain things like targets and so on and so forth. So honestly, I feel that, Laporta is still very viable in this particular offense without, even with JMO stepping up. They also picked up, they got Donovan Peoples-Jones last season, who is very underrated for a lot of things. And even Khalif Raymond, who I understand these guys are on the bottom of the roster and so on and so forth, but they're still very viable guys to step in when needed. So overall, that offense I just love. Just give me anybody in that offense. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, you can look at certain offenses in the league, right? Detroit's obviously one of those. Houston this season, of course. There's just going to be offenses you want to buy pieces of and you want exposure to. And I think I don't think there's really a player, like you said, Classic, unless you're getting to the bottom of the roster, that's on Detroit that's not going to be fantasy relevant and in the top half of their roster.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Wicked, what is this? Wicked
Pompano?
Just going to put that up. Yeah.
So is so this is actually a great question. So is Metcalf able to be grouped with Waddle and Devontae Smith?
Should I just read our text thread from what we were
I was going to say that's like literally
read our text thread from earlier today?
And I think we were all different on that, right? We pretty much were all different on that.
So for
I think we're same on DK though, right? Like
DK we pretty much had him last or second to the last. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
So I've been talking to the guys about doing some content of, these kind of players that are really tightly bunched together and how do you separate them? And I said, hey guys, this pocket of quarterbacks is really interesting group to rank. And I listed a bunch of names and asked the guys to rank them. And then I went through a wide receiver exercise. And Wicked, here's the group. Brandon Ayuk, Chris Olave, Drake London, Michael Pittman, Devonta Smith, Malik Neighbors, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, and T. Higgins. And to me, that's a tough group to rank. Because you're nitpicking at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You're nitpicking. So the short answer, in my opinion, is yes, you can put DK in that group. Is he at the top? Is he at the bottom? But I don't know. What do you guys think? Because I know we had chatted and texted about that a little bit today with that quarterback stack that I gave you, and then obviously that big grouping of wide receivers I just read off.
I think DK is the third best wide receiver on his team.
Wow, interesting.
Look, he's physically gifted. Don't get me wrong. He's very physically gifted, but I've never seen somebody who's that. What a gift. Rasta, we're friends again. Thank you.
I was literally going to take him, but I'm like, with this build, I'm forced to build now.
Yeah.
So
after the Kelsey,
you know what I mean? That Kelsey pick, I was hoping Andrews fell would have gave me a little more time to have a little more flexibility, but yeah. He was literally queued up, and I'm like, for the build, I have to go Kamara.
So I like DK, but I don't love the fact that from a talent and route running perspective, which I guess I'm looking at the modern NFL where the true X wide receiver, even when crazy talented, has been underperforming year after year. Right now, some of it, like I like a lot of true X's that I think it's a coaching situation. I just don't think DK is good enough and nuanced enough at how to get open versus how to use his physicality. And defenses are just too well coached at the NFL level to let him go crazy all the time. I like him in best ball for the big spike weeks. I do like the analytics and yeah, I'm sure Classic, you're always hop on the analytics, but I'm sure DK has led the league several years or up there in his red zone targets.
Yes, that's the stat that keeps me.
Again,
correct.
I would love that if the team touchdown total was projected to be just insane.
Right.
That would convert to something, but there's a team that also wants to run the ball a lot and has the ability to do so fairly adeptly. And I think JSN is still waiting in the weeds. Like one of the biggest threats to DK is that JSN could come in and be a better version of Deontay Johnson very quickly. And we know Pickens never was able to fully break out. I think he'll break out this year. I think he's going to be fantastic, but he was being held back by how often Deontay was just open before you could hit him on the 9. I think that DK is going to suffer from a consistent high floor situation by JSN being good and Lockett being at least serviceable for this year. And what I think it doesn't have to be a top half passing volume offense. Should be around there, but I don't see the ceiling play with DK as very attainable. even though it should be. He's the type of guy where prototypically he should have an elite ceiling. But the fact that I don't feel like it's very attainable says a lot. And we're knocking JSN for what, a bad rookie year? DK is not a spry young chicken anymore. I mean, he's had several seasons to kind of fully break out, and it hasn't happened yet. If we're going to knock JSN for one season, we better be knocking DK for like 3.
I mean, my next question is, who do you guys think is actually going to be the starting quarterback this year?
For the
do you
Seahawks?
Do you think it's Sam Howell, or do you think it's Geno?
It's Geno.
100%?
I say that 98%. I don't see a world with
99.
Yeah, I mean 100% freaks people out.
Yeah. And you can never be
I think
100%
Howell is better
right.
for all 3 wide receivers. You pop Howell in there.
I was just going to say, Howell is the better
baby.
option. Yeah.
I think that I kind of take the opposite side of that, Kendall, with JSN eating into DK's work. I don't see it that way because I see Tyler Lockett and JSN competing against one another for that slot role.
Yep.
DK Metcalf, look, this is really important. 55% of his red zone targets is all that he caught last year. Wow. And he scored 8 touchdowns with 1,100 yards. So if you're telling me that a guy who was targeted that many times in the red zone, who only caught half of those opportunities, and again, we know that Geno missed some time late in the season. To me, I don't ever see DK as a yardage monster, but the touchdowns is what you're after. And that's what, I mean, I said this last night in my show, touchdowns win fantasy football games. Volume and touchdowns are what we're chasing, right? If you're looking at quarterbacks, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but if you're looking at quarterbacks, it is a good one here. If you're looking at quarterbacks in a 4-point passing touchdown versus 6-point passing touchdown, 6-point passing touchdown, I'm evaluating who I think is going to give me the total number of touchdowns as my tiebreaker. Whereas in a 4-point scoring format, I want the rushing upside, right? I want someone that's going to be able to get me those extra yards that they're going to miss out because they're not going to throw 30, 35 touchdowns a season. So to come back on my point, I think ultimately what I'm looking for is touchdown upside and red zone targets. JSN and Tyler Lockett are slot guys. They're not catching 50-50 balls in the red zone. And if you're sitting here telling me Noah Fant's going to suddenly become this target monster in the red zone, I'm going to tell you that you need to buy that lottery ticket now because it ain't happening. So I look at DK as a touchdown opportunity for, and I agree with you, Kendall, they are going to run the ball a ton. I think Mike McDonald coming over from Baltimore is going to implement that system. But DK is still going to be a guy that I would put very safely between eight touchdowns as his floor, upwards of 12 is his ceiling. And that's going to be,
he's like a walking 8 touchdowns.
Yeah. And that's going to be higher. That's going to be higher in the league.
JSN and Lockett in all my rankings for sure. But if we're going back to like Waddle versus D Smith, Phil, I know you're pretty high on Waddle in general. And I know you're high on Devonta Smith, taking him, above players that could be in contention, at least for it. Right. Maybe jump into, so like, why are Waddle and Smith specifically? Because you're clearly higher on DK than the rest of us to some extent based on role, but you still have them a tier below Waddle and Smith, I think. How do you kind of, make that make sense?
Better offenses. I mean, I just see it as a more explosive offense in Miami and a more explosive offense in Philadelphia. I think that Saquon coming to Philadelphia.
Really?
They're
going to take my first Bo Nix share right there. And that was the last pick I thought you were going with right there. All right.
We can work out another trade, man.
Yeah, there's going to be.
Yeah, but I'm not getting anybody that you want. Like maybe if I grab Benson, but I mean, come on. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. So yeah, I'm looking at opportunities. Number one, I think Jalen Waddle had a really rough year last year. I think the buyer's remorse, and especially in redraft, was really difficult. He burned you. He did. He burned you. I think he's going to bounce back. Devonta Smith, to me, we've seen it with Waddle and we've seen it with Smith. Tua and Jalen Hurts have both shown that they can support a top 10 or top 12 wide receiver in each of them. So I've seen that. So to me, that's why I have them higher than DK. Yes, DK is the alpha and the wide receiver one on his team, in my opinion, but we haven't seen Geno really support him the way that we've seen Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle be supported as top tier wide receivers. So again, we're kind of splitting hairs. I could see both sides of an argument if you really have a strong DK take, but you're looking at guys that have proven what they're capable of, and to me that means a lot. That means a lot to me when I evaluate players.
Isn't just a floor take kind of a fair play though too? Like those are two. Waddle and Smith are in wide receiver 1 and then 2 and then that's it. on their offense for the most part, where DK, there's 3 mouths. Those guys have 2 mouths in high-powered offenses. I just remember that was it 2 years ago maybe? It was the year that every wide receiver 2 just nailed it. And if you just didn't draft wide receiver 1s and drafted all wide receiver 2s, you just destroyed everybody. It feels like I personally love targeting they're a wide receiver 2, kinda. Like, because T. Higgins is a wide receiver 2, unless he got traded, right?
Right.
Pop that question up. That's why I like those other 2. They have the floor of a high target share and the ceiling of what a high target share can do to your red zone opportunities. They kind of get the best of both worlds, and DK he's got to overcome more than they have to. And I think they're talented. Devonta Smith, I gotta say, I'm rising on him very quickly. I mean, we forget that I think him and AJ Brown are much closer than they are farther apart.
Oh, completely agree with that. And if you look at it real quick at DK Metcalf, the last 4 years, I think it is, or ever since he was wide receiver 7, like he finished the year, it's wide receiver 7, his best year. After that, he was 14, 17, and last year 21.
Yep.
So all he's been doing is going down, and he got an upgrade at QB. Well, not an upgrade, I guess a downgrade at QB.
Yeah.
From Russell to him. But,
yeah.
At the end of the day, he got the downgrade, and now he's moving in that direction. Unless he goes somewhere else, he's not going to be what you want him to be. Because what are they going to do with Geno that he hasn't already done? And unless they're planning on using Sam Howell, which me and Kendall both agree, I mean, it's somebody that I think that can help him more. I mean, we saw what he could do with Terry. Terry did pretty well overall. I think that, they can use the run game to help out Sam Howell a little bit better. So can it work out in that way? Maybe. But honestly, he's falling a little bit lower on my, especially in dynasty leagues. Redraft, would I want him a little bit? Could I get him in a decent round for some value? Yeah, for sure. I might be okay with that as my wide receiver 2 or 3. But I would prefer, definitely there, not my wide receiver 1. So Wicked goes, how should a T. Higgins owner approach the offseason with no news of contract or any trade rumors? I mean, you have to hold. And Ethan's not, Calbeck's not wrong. No news is good news. Anywhere he goes, he'll be a wide receiver 1. But it's based on where, of course. If he went to Carolina, yeah, he would be the wide receiver 1. But
he's not going to go. There. He's not going to go anywhere where he's not. That's kind of the point. Is he's looking to be the one somewhere.
True.
Like he thought he was the one until they drafted this kid named Jamar Chase.
I wanted
ruined everything.
I wanted the Giants to draft him more than I wanted the Giants to at least put their hat in the ring and be like, hey, we're willing to take you for a decent amount of money. But they never did. Ended up, it just frustrated me. Same with Brandon Ayuk. They couldn't at least throw their hat in the ring to see if maybe they would be worth talking about. I understand the deals that they're looking for and what they want, outrageous money. They want something like St. Brown, and I understand it. But at the end of the day, they're not, those teams aren't willing to pay it at that point. They still got to pay Chase and they still got to pay Burrow. So at this point, they got to pick which one they want to pick out of the 3. And at this point, they just don't think it's Higgins. Okay, that's fine. Now, at the end of the day, then where would he go and who's willing to pay for that?
I'll give you 3 teams, and I've thought about this a lot because I actually wrote in one of my articles in the off season prior to free agency opening up and that legal tampering period, which don't get me started on that. That's dumb. Yeah. but I do think that there are 3 teams that stand out to me if he doesn't come back to the Bengals, and both Los Angeles Rams and Los Angeles Chargers stand out. The Chargers need an alpha. He would be great he doesn't take anything away. If Ladd McConkey becomes what we hope that he will become, it doesn't affect Ladd McConkey. You get another weapon. Cooper Kupp's 31 years old, guys. He ain't going to play forever, and you've got a young player with Puka. I don't know if that is going to factor into Higgins feeling like he's not the alpha, but in my mind, it's a really good situation. Mm-hmm. And the last one would be the Bucs. Mike Evans just re-signed, but he's older. Chris Godwin's older. So you've got a 28-year-old Chris Godwin. You've got a 31-year-old, I think, Mike Evans. Mm-hmm. Baker just signed a contract, and Rachaad White seems to be the guy. And I'd be a little bit shocked if Rachaad White doesn't get paid after this season, especially if he has another solid performance. So to me, those are 3 teams that need an alpha wide receiver, and I think T. Higgins fits that bill. I don't know. I mean, look, there's it's interesting, right? Like Buffalo screams that you should go there, but the Bengals aren't going to allow a team that's in their own conference to prevent them from getting to the Super Bowl. It's why I couldn't believe they allowed the Chiefs to trade up for Xavier Worthy. It made no sense to me. But yeah, the 2 Los Angeles teams and the Bucks stand out to me as landing spots for T. Higgins.
Okay, I like those. I like those places for him if that were to ever happen. I mean, the one team that would be willing to give away picks and and make arrangements is the Rams. Like,
yeah, the Rams.
They're okay with not having a first round pick for the next few years. Like, I can understand that, and honestly, I think that would be a good choice for them, especially if they have to move on from Stafford after the next couple of years. I mean, they do have somebody that's they have Garoppolo, but they also, sitting on their taxi squad is Sensen. I'm going to get his name wrong. Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
And honestly, he's back at camp. He's all back, ready to go. I know he had a little bit of a, rough time coming in and all that, but he's a pretty solid QB. I liked him coming out of college, and I think he has the ability to do pretty well in that offense if he's willing to get his shit together. So
I could see the Rams taking a developmental quarterback, a rookie next season as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Especially if you're going to pay T. Higgins, you've got money. Look, Kyron's on a rookie contract. Corum's on a rookie contract. We just don't know if they're going to get paid. Puka's on a rookie contract. So the caveat to all this is that other than Dak Prescott, I don't see a quarterback that's going to reset the free agency market after this season. And I think we all probably would agree that Dak goes back to Dallas. So, do you take what's the kid from Texas? My brain just went blank.
Which one? Oh, Archie?
No, not Arch. The starter right now.
Oh, I forgot his name.
Yes, Quinn Ewers. Thank you. Sorry, I was thinking of Sam Ellinger, but that's a long time ago. Yes, Ewers.
Wow, Phil, we are old.
That's how the brain works at 8:59 on a Friday night, boys and girls. But yeah, I mean, do you take a Quinn Ewers, and see what you have there? Do you take a Jalen Milroe for one more year with Stafford and Garoppolo and see what you have there, and potentially spend that money on a T. Higgins? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, it's about to be June 1st here, and we're talking about next season. We got a long way to go.
Yes, I'm excited. The one thing. Go ahead.
So what are the options for just to thoroughly answer the question? I think what we're all in consensus of, right, is the best play with T. Higgins right now is the trade market is not electric enough. You have to hold.
Yeah.
I think we might agree that his best fantasy finish might potentially be typically where he's at right now. I do think he'll go be the one in a lot of places, and it could be electric. I think for the most part, even if a guy gets traded to a bad situation, the hype of a good player going to a new situation is always through the roof, especially when it's a guy as talented as T. Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're a little nervous about him, you hold, and you can always sell for a much bigger profit once he moves. Or you're going to have the higher ceiling, solid floor of a wide receiver one. It just depends on the landing spot in your take. It's for sure a hold, though. I think it's a very consensus hold. Keep an eye on who's hearting, T. Higgins in your trade screens, who might be into him, and when the trade does happen. I mean, I think I throw out a couple of feelers, start some conversations. If you can get the haul after he's traded, fantastic. If not, that's why you don't panic too early on a player that is clearly talented, and his range of outcomes. I think we agree his range of outcomes is all very, very good,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's all significantly better than where he is now in terms of market share. So stay strong, brother. Last year was ugly. I get it. If you were contending last year, I think I was a T. Higgins owner, and
I had T. Higgins too.
I mean, we're going to feel worse about him than the market for sure. The market doesn't know what it was like to own him as a guy trying to win games. That wasn't fun, right? But you got to remember, everyone else who doesn't have him doesn't have to deal with his 9-point games. They got to deal with
the active, and then the day of the game. And so
he starts, plays a couple snaps, and then he's like, "Nah, I'm done." Like those are the worst.
Now, if you really want even more pain or salt in the wound, imagine just hypothetically if you knew a guy who was wearing a gray sweatshirt and a black hat who had T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle as his wide receiver 2 and 3. You might want to give that guy a hug.
Well, unfortunately,
hugs.
I am 3,000 miles away, and otherwise I would.
Come on out to Cali Classic. Come on out, buddy. I'll put you up, brother. I'll put you up here.
I need to. One of these days, I got to travel. But yeah, that made me sad.
If you want to double dip, by the way, try to buy. If Burton doesn't start off great, try to buy Burton. Overpay by hair if you have to. The upside if T. Higgins is traded and you get to win on that, and then Burton's a wide receiver 2 overnight, like that's a way to go. Real big upside too.
You know who I really like? Someone that I am very like. Everyone keeps forgetting about. I guess I can't pronounce his name, and you guys need to help me on this. You guys know their third wide receiver currently on the depth chart?
Andrea Sovis, yeah.
Andrea, yeah. I'm telling you, I think he has a good opportunity to get it. I understand Burton has the draft capital, but I do think that he's been there longer. He has a little bit more rapport. He has the ability to take over that third wide receiver role that Boyd left. He's around the same build, at 6'3". I mean, he's a little bit bigger actually, 6'3", 205. I mean, he's a big dude.
I believe in that Chase Brown wide receiver 3 action.
I'm not going to go that far. I do think that Chase Brown will be the lead back there, but
let's go. That's who I just drafted. Let's go.
Yeah. No, hey, I was a little upset that
my little Burrow stack right there.
I was waiting for him to come to me at 12:10, and I was like, oh shit.
Had to get the little Burrow stack.
Well, speaking of Chase Brown, what do you guys think of the Chase Brown Moss Cincy backfield? I feel like it's in a weird spot in the trade market. I feel like everyone's kind of like, yeah, Moss is interesting. I'm not going to go crazy. Or sorry, Chase Brown's interesting. I'm not going to go crazy. Moss sometimes goes for less in trades than Chase Brown. And this is the RB1 and 2 for the Bengals. It feels like a weird situation of like, I didn't know much about James Cook, but I know he was the running back for the Bills. That was enough to get you fired up a little bit. It feels like are we being too cautious? Is this
I just think it's one side and another. Yeah, I just think it's one side or the other. Like I have him in a ton of taxi spots right now, like right now in a couple leagues. So like I'm waiting to see. Obviously, I'm hoping he ends up becoming the one over there with the passing upside, or at least can get a nice 60-40 split if he is getting those high volume touches, those third down touches and the catches, obviously. In that offense. And so I think they're going to work with, like, my whole thought process is in that situation too, because of Burrow's injuries, I think they're going to let him know, hey, you can check it down a little more.
Yeah.
Like save yourself a little bit. So I'm hoping on a little bit of that as well, to where he'll check down, a little more. So I just see an opportunity there, for Brown to succeed. But again, a lot of it's probably mostly based off of hope in those taxi spots where I own them.
You want to know something funny? I want you guys to guess. In the first 9 weeks last year, where do you guys think Zach Moss finished in the first 9 weeks?
Oh, he was like RB 3 or something.
RB4, I think.
Well,
yeah, he was at
one point, but it wasn't. I'm talking about in the first 9 weeks.
Oh, I don't know overall. I know for a while there he was like.
Oh yeah, no. For like the first 3 weeks,
top.
he was like tight. He was running back like 4, I think.
Yeah, and then JT came back.
I'm going to say RB7.
RB7? Okay. Yeah. What about you, Kendall?
I'm going to say RB5.
Okay. What about you,
I'll split the difference and go 6.
God damn you, Rasta, getting the
let's go.
6. So, yeah.
Let's go.
I mean, honestly, he has the ability. I mean, he did that, of course, with the Colts, different offensive line to, scheme, whole deal. But he did that while JT was away, and he did pretty well. I think he can do. I think he's going to be a serviceable. He's going to be a serviceable RB2, or like a flex play that you might need in redraft of all places. Dynasty is a whole different animal. You can probably get him for what, an early third? Like is that reasonable? Third,
Chase Brown for an early
For
third?
who?
No. Zach Moss. If you're looking for just a brand,
I wouldn't pay any more than a third for
No,
Moss.
I've been trying to sell him in 2 leagues for a minute,
And what's your price that you've got?
So I have been looking, not my offers, right? You know what I'm trying to finish at. You know,
right?
I would like to going to a roster that I don't think is like a top tier team. I was looking to get a second and a third. I'm not sure I would take just a flat second though. I feel like the upside is at the point where I'm like, he's going to have enough opportunities where we're trading in the off season. I hate trading running backs away in the off season.
Yeah, that's just like almost
way more
101.
important to your roster. Looks fine without a bunch of them until you try to win games and you realize you might need them. Not everyone needs them. There's at least 6 teams in the league that have no use for a single running back because they ain't win it, right? And they should have none. But for the contending teams, I can see this being a piece that they would definitely pay up more for. I think going into the season, you can go from a single second of value or a second and a third, add a full second to that. A contending team would absolutely do, I think, 2 seconds. If he was 65% snap share, you know, averaging 70 yards a game,
goal line work,
you know, plus goal line work, projected for maybe 8 touchdowns. That level of very solid low end RB2, high end RB3
targets.
numbers.
I definitely see him in the 10s. I see him as a in between the 10s guy. 10 to end zone. You know, like he's one of those. Chase Brown is between the 20s. You know, like he will probably be that main
2-minute drill.
2-minute drill, goal line guy. But that has value. That's I'm trying. What the hell was his name? Jalen Tolbert. Was it Tolbert? No, not Tolbert. Mike Tolbert. It's Mike Tolbert. Like, think of him as Mike Tolbert, the vulture
from the Chargers.
Yeah.
That could be an interesting take though. You're saying like
Ryan Matthews
is Moss 80 yards a game, but 1 catch. He's a consistent 8 to 10 points guy, but Chase Brown in the fourth quarter can catch 3 passes and be kind of electric with him, and you kind of like
score a touchdown and yeah.
Well, I'm thinking more of he's the guy that can get you 30 yards. He'll get you 30 yards on 10 attempts with a touchdown and maybe a passing touchdown or something like that. Like, he has the ability to do that as well. So his range of outcomes can be.
I mean, a receiving touchdown, right?
That's what I meant.
Not a pass. Okay.
Yeah.
How many good games? How many Moss good games would it take for us to be like, all right, we messed up?
We messed up. Yeah.
I mean, do you think it would take a lot, or like, is there like the second good game in a row would be like, oh man, I should have bought?
Yeah, people start to panic. Like, remember, dude, people start panicking after like
that's what I'm
3,
selling.
Dude. Yeah. That's where the hype is.
Yeah, I take the contrarian approach on this. First, 2 pieces here really quickly. First thought, number 1, I am not trading Zach Moss or Chase Brown away as a single piece. I'm packaging them. I'm hiding them as part of a package, because if that's the player that everybody knows this, and if you don't, this is a really good lesson for trading. Unless you're trading for somebody that's just kind of mid-tier, that someone's like, yeah, that's probably fair value, a second for insert player here. I'm always trying to package players, because at the end of the day, I know that's going to help me keep the price down when I'm buying, right? Like, if I'm acquiring roster, if I'm trying to acquire Chase Brown off your roster, you're going to charge me more because you know that's the player that I'm targeting. Right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Always hide that. Yeah.
Yeah,
just why you never send your best offer first.
100%, right? It's negotiation 101. So I think at the end of the day, like, look, a lot of us on this call are in sales. We don't do fantasy football for a living as much as we'd like to, but I think that's the sale piece of it. The other piece for me is I struggle with the Alexander Madisons, the Zamir Whites, the Zach Mosses of the world that come into these roles where they're, they're starting running back and they're going to get all this. Yeah, they might. And I think that's great. Mike Davis. Exactly. I think to me, that's a great redraft target. That's a player that I would take a shot on and a flyer on in a redraft league where I just need 1 season. In a dynasty league, how many of you want Alexander Madison on your team right now? Not one person. To me, like that, nobody
drafted him in like the 6th all day last season.
How many of you want Miles? How many of you want Miles Sanders on your team right now?
Oh, no,
you
no.
can't trade those guys away. I mean, that's the whole point, and they're on
You
contract.
could drop them, and I doubt anyone even picks
they have
them up.
contracts.
That to me, like that's literally my point. Is that you have no competition for those players. Nobody wants them, and Miles Sanders has got 2 more years on that deal with a lot of money, and he's the 3rd string running back for the Panthers. They just, with their actions, told you Jonathan Brooks is our guy. We are moving on.
Yeah,
so I struggle. Yeah, I struggle outside of redraft, or DFS, or even like a best ball tournament where I'm actively seeking out Zach Moss as an RB2 on my team. It's just, I'm okay being wrong. Put it that way. Like you guys asked, okay, what point are we just wrong on it? I'm okay being wrong if the Zach Moss, hype train becomes reality. Mm-hmm. I'm okay not buying that ticket.
If you're wrong for a year.
Exactly.
Right? Like
that's my point.
The train, you might have missed it for a season and a half if you miss it, right? And I think that's a great lesson is when you're wrong, take a breath. Don't go crazy. You're going to be right in another year or you're just going to even out.
Yep. Yeah, you didn't draft Jalen Waddle and ahead of Justin Jefferson and go, oh, shit, I just completely missed it. Like, no, you didn't. Like, you didn't screw that one up. So,
yeah,
pass protect is a good.
I've heard that too. Victor, that's actually a really good point. He wasn't very good at Illinois either. He was a total workhorse at Illinois, which was kind of crazy because everyone thinks of him as a little scat back pass catcher, but he was a total workhorse at Illinois. But yeah, I don't think he can pass protect at all, and I think that's a big reason why his snap share is always going to stay pretty low. But while he was productive with it, I think that's actually a big thing. It's a kind of a big, and something I think Zach Moss was kind of praised at for a little while on the Colts.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what he was in. He was always in on 3rd down, and he pretty much had to, protect. I mean, the other part is Chris Evans is there as well. So, I mean, Chris Evans isn't anything special, but he's still competing. It's not like he's going to go away. So they do have a good, amount of people that can really, step into that role. So we have another one where Wicked goes, apparently J-Mo has been posting cryptid midnight Instagram stories. Is this a sign that he goes to nuclear this year?
J-Mo to the moon, baby.
Hey man, I've been picking him up everywhere and anywhere I can, to be honest.
And I was
low on him last year.
Yeah, I love seeing it. And now I'm the one who's like, let me pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, now you're the one that pumps the brake.
New information, new analysis.
Well, the funny thing is we always tend to be the opposite. Like he'll start being like, oh, I love this guy. And I'll be like, no, I hate this guy. He's horrible at this point. And then all of a sudden I'll switch my view right when he's switching his. And we're both like, huh? Like, well, why? Where did we go wrong?
Exactly. Oh, that's a good one. If we're projecting players off of IG stories, we're way too bored this summer. Yeah. So that just tells you there's just not much going on in football right now. We're just holding on to everything. And that brings up another point. When you do start drafting, don't fall for the hype. This is why you want to start drafting now. So you have an idea of where guys are going. So when it comes to your real drafts in August, you're not paying all that hype. Remember Calvin really got pushed all the way up to that 2-3 turn last year. I mean, just a ton of guys that just got super hyped off of Damian Pierce, just all that camp news that was coming out. So just have just always remember your takes or your kind of rankings and tiers, because really nothing too much changes just because some guy is playing good in his shorts and helmet.
Exactly.
Always remember Jamar Chase couldn't see the threads on the ball. Remember, and his fell. That was one of the biggest buy the dips ever. With the whole Jamar Chase thing, that was just laughable. I got him, I think, in the 7th round in our keeper league, and I've kept him every year. Yeah, it's just nonsense. So, anyway, what else we got going on? He said, "Peak off season, baby. We're mocking in May. I'm in good company for sure. Yeah, this is for the degenerates for sure. And what's up, bro? How's it going, bro? All right. So as we always do, man, I want to take a quick minute here and just let you guys know this mock draft here was brought to you by our boys over at UnderdogFantasy.com. Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. From their best ball draft tournaments, which means you just draft a team with no season-long commitment, no waivers, no trades, no weekly lineup setting. And for those of you guys know, I placed the 42nd out of 70,446 people in the Chihuahua tournament last year. Turned my $4 entry into $400. So come check them out. They also have their pick'em contest as well, where you just pick higher or lower on total player stats. Like total yards, touchdowns, things like that. So visit underdogfantasy.com or download the app now. And when you do, use that promo code GetRight, and you'll be able to claim not only a special pick'em, which is usually plus or minus like a half a yard or half a point if they're still doing basketball whenever you do sign up here. You're also going to get 50% deposit match up to $250. So basically, you just deposit as little as $10. Help support the channel here. Use that code GetRight. You'll get $5 in bonus cash. But if you do deposit the full $500, you'll get that full $250 in bonus cash. So what are you waiting for? Go download the app now. Use that promo code GetRight, and let's jump in a draft together, fellas. Let's do it.
Exciting.
And so I mean, other than that, anything else you guys want to bring up? You want to go over the teams here, since I know Frank and I will be doing it Monday, but give you guys a second to go over your team.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you guys go first?
All right, so I'll throw it to Phil. Drafting out of the 12 spot, going with that kind of late or anchor QB. So roll us through the team and let us know what you think.
Yeah, look, it's tough on the turn when you can't trade, right? So, I mean, I think that's the challenge, is you kind of get what you get here. But just to kind of run through my quarterback room, Dak Prescott, I feel great about in the 4th round. Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr doesn't make me feel good, but you get what you get.
You get starters.
Yeah, I get some guys that I know I can get some youth out of. And look, if I'm picking inside the top, 3 picks next year, then hopefully there's a good in the rookie draft. But feel strong about my wide receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins as my 3 starters, with Devonta Adams in my flex. Look, Devonta Adams is old. It's not sexy, but he had 187 targets. He was number 2 in the NFL in targets last year. I will take that all day. I do think Gardner Minshew is an upgrade over AOC. So to me, I think they're going to just continue to pepper Adams. And then to finalize my build out in the wide receiver room, take 2 rookies. I was a little higher on AD Mitchell coming out in the draft process. I was a little surprised that he fell as far as he did in the real draft. I know that the Colts traded up to get him, but I liked what I saw on film. I liked the combine. No rookie prospect profile is perfect. And, to me, I like the opportunity in Indianapolis, slotting in there as the wide receiver 2 behind Michael Pittman. And then Roman Wilson to finish out my build, take a flyer on a rookie in the 11th round, and hopefully he develops into a useful wide receiver 3 for my team next year with some spot starts, on a bye week. My running back room, Bijan Robinson, no one's ever going to complain when he's the RB1 off the board. Jonathan Brooks, Jalen Warren, and Tyler Algier. I took Tyler Algier as an insurance policy, but also in the 14th round, there's just nobody down there that you have to feel any sort of, confidence about. So Brooks is going to take a little while to develop. I think we all know that because of the ACL injury. So Jalen Warren, to me, I've said this, I've had this take for most of the offseason and even as far back as last year. Jalen Warren, to me, is the 1A in Pittsburgh. I just don't see a world where he and Najee, they're going to compete. Obviously, they're going to probably split snaps. I don't see a world where one of them really wins the job, barring injury. But I like the upside of Warren. Again, I always go with what do my eyes see when I watch football. Jalen Warren is the more explosive player than Najee. So I do think in that Arthur Smith offense, he's going to have good pass catching value. And I think he's going to score touchdowns. So that's what I'm looking for in the 10th round as an RB2 to start the season, but eventually an RB3 once Brooks is ready. And then David Njoku as my tight end. I'm like Rasta. I don't really want to take an early tight end. I'd rather take one later. I wish Joe Flacco was still on the Browns because he was the reason Njoku was so good.
But Njoku was on that team I had that placed 42nd. So yeah, he was a big reason why I was there.
And he was on one of my dynasty rosters that I won a championship last year. He had that monster second, half of the year, and that's really what propelled me. I have obviously some really good skilled players. You're not in the championship game without them, but he helped push me over the top to get that ring. So yeah, feel good about Njoku in the 9th as my starting tight end.
Very cool. All right, Kendall, tell us about your team here.
Sure. Well, with 14 rounds in my draft in particular, is very unfinished because I have about 6 more wide receivers to draft.
Right.
So let me
Yeah, I
let me
like that
let me
too.
let me tell y'all a little story about my draft. All right, so round 1, we take my favorite QB, a little bit of a reach, love him. Round 2, we're planning on at the 107 to take either Hall or Gibbs. We love the hero RB approach from the middle. I've practiced this probably over 200 mocks at this point. It's just what I prefer to catch more value later on. So we get my right now my RB2, almost my RB1 in Dynasty. In the third, I was hoping to get Purdy or T-Law, Tua as my backup since I'm above him. Super happy with the way that went. So feeling very, very fantastic there. 4th round, I didn't plan on taking a tight end here, but what I thought was going to happen was this is a little past ADP for McBride, and what I've seen happen, I figured with Laporta going, then McBride, there was a good chance that Kincaid and maybe another tight end might go ahead, and I'd still get value dropped to me. Didn't happen. I have been loving the bully tight end play when it comes to me. It happened one other time. It fell to me again. That was not part of the plan, but it was my backup. I knew the moment I took McBride that I was willing to take Kincaid in the 5th if it landed that way. And that's going to change our draft significantly to a build that has assets to trade if I want to contend, or I'm just playing for year 2 because I'm going to need year 2 wide receiver breakouts. But I can always trade. Dell was really tough for me because I kind of got sniped pretty good. People just cleaned out my
I
queue.
wanted him to come back to me.
Yeah. I'm fully on. I like Tank over Nico. I'm just a big Tank guy. I like when the wide receiver is the quarterback's best friend. I don't know. I think there's some magic there. I think he's going to disappoint from time to time, but I think there's a little bit of magic there. But I was really hoping for Pickens. The whole plan was I like Pickens and Addison a lot. I wanted one of them to fall. It didn't. And so Dell felt gross. That's the first pick I'll tell you I didn't love, and I seriously considered Brian Thomas. But at the Dell pick, I am drafting wide receiver back-to-back here. In my queue are Dell, Worthy, BTJ, JSN, Reed, McConkey, and Coleman. Dell was just the top of the ADP game, so I was a full ADP game. It was I'm taking 2 of this group, and I got really lucky that the very last player in my queue was the last player available. So that was almost a disaster. It was very close. So we got 2 of the range that we wanted to. So don't look at it as Dell in the 6th. Look at it as Dell and Coleman, 2 of about 6. Benson was just a really awesome gift. I thought there was no way he was coming back to me. I was planning on drafting one other running back or maybe 2 somewhere along those lines. Benson really solidified it for me. Nix was a value on the way back. Typically after Nix, Penix, I don't take anybody. I usually just want to stay young at QB, and I'm fine drafting 4 of them. Tradable assets. I don't plan on rostering them necessarily. I plan on if the hype train comes or an injury happens and it's either your season's over or you make a trade, I think I'm going to be able to turn Nix for a little bit of profit considering where he's going, right? Can I sell Nix for more than David Montgomery and Chris Godwin on either side of him? Absolutely, unless he's a full bust. So that's kind of the Nix pick. Afterwards, you guys know where I'm at. The Benson and Nix picks were supposed to be wide receivers, but that didn't happen that way, and I was supposed to take wide receivers the rest of the way, and we tried to do that as much as possible. Feel really good about grabbing Jonathan Williams there. Say Jonathan Williams. That is absolutely not his name. Jameson Williams.
Sorry, Antonio Brown, man. It happened.
Hey, man, AB, there he goes. Value pick with Penix. I'm going to trade him. If this was a real league, I would trade him almost immediately for another wide receiver. Right? I just really like them as a nice 1-2 punch, both explosive. And then Corley and Baker, I like. It was Baker or maybe a Jalen McMillan there. And I'm going to draft about 3 more wide receivers. So that's kind of where my head was at. If I were to finish the rest of this draft, the plan is to take 3 more rookie wide receivers, probably not contend year 1 unless things really go my way, but across drafting a ton of the 2024 draft class at wide receiver, I'm hoping I at least have a couple of hits that are well above where they're supposed to be, and use that to piece together a bit of a wide receiver core kind of made up of a bunch of wide receiver 2s. And I really need Coleman to hit like badly.
Yeah, I hope he does.
Very nice. Very nice. Well done. Well done. And Classic, you want to take a second to go through your team and then we'll wrap this thing up?
Well, first I wanted to bring up Fei Foey saying love the content, guys. Thanks, man.
What's up, man?
We really do appreciate it. He goes, just sold Stroud for Mahomes straight up, feeling good about it. I like it. I like it a lot. I like Stroud.
That's interesting.
I like it a lot. So my build, of course, starts with good old CJ Stroud as my QB1 at the 103. It's very rare that I'm not going to pick him at that point. He's young. He definitely has so many outcomes that I am completely okay with him and keeping him as my QB1 for, ever and for always. Kirk Cousins is my next QB that I get in the 5th round. I'm pretty much going to be. I almost went for Goff at the 303. I didn't really want to take him that early. Usually, I try to hope and pray that he gets back to me in the 4th. But if he doesn't, I usually go for Cousins. In this case, I just like the offense he's in, and he's only a 1 or 2 year flyer, but he's there to help me out as my Superflex option. And then, of course, I grabbed Daniel Jones because he fell, which was fantastic. I'd rather have him at the 14th pick than anywhere. So I'll take him there. He's just a viable bench play at that point. I also went, the same as Kendall here with a running back as my starting, as my 210. He's one of the younger running backs in this group. He will last for quite some time. I am pretty happy with having him that early or that late in the round in this case. Then taking James Cook, who is also another young running back who is going to be getting the ball. I mean, he is 24 and he has plenty, he has a couple of years left that I can use for now. I also went with Javonte Williams a little bit later in the 8th. I had a choice between White, Najee, Mixon, Montgomery, and, a bunch of the other guys like Corum and, a few younger guys. I went with Javonte Williams, and I love this kid. He's the same age as James Cook. He's been in the league 1 year longer than James Cook. And at the same time, he showed huge spurts and did very well last season. He has Mike Lombardi as his OC, Sean Payton as his coach. Anytime that they've been together, they have had a top 10 running back, and at this point, he has the ability to do that. They're going to feed him the ball. They're going to try to get him more involved. He's a year removed from the ACL injury. He looked okay while he was playing. He definitely had a little bit more burst than most of the other guys, even coming off the ACL. He loves contact. I'm a big fan of Javonte Williams, and he's one of my guys that you can either buy real low for a decent price, and he can be your running back too. In my opinion, I think he can definitely hold that value for a couple more years. Then I drafted Marshawn Lloyd a little bit later. Marshawn Lloyd a little bit later on. Definitely get that rookie running back that I wanted. He will probably take over in the next year or two. So it's the start of a new group of young running backs that I can have early. Next, I went with my wide receiver room. I had Drake London. I'm very high on. I think this year Cousins can pretty much. I don't want to call him JJ, but he can make him in that top tier of wide receiver, the top 10 wide receivers, and do very well. I took a risk on Rashid Rice. I wanted a younger wide receiver. I understand this year is probably shot. That's okay. I understand. That's kind of why I went with Diggs in the next round. Also pair him up with, Stroud. I know it's only a 1 or 2 year flyer, if that, and that's okay. I feel confident that he'll be a solid wide receiver too, and help me solidify where I need to in that particular position. Ended up getting Deontay Johnson, who I, as you all know, love. So for me, in this case, I'm sticking with it. I think Bryce Young has a few years to develop with Johnson, and I think if anything, he is the guy that he's going to target more often. Thielen's on his way out. Leggett, they have some value in. Mingo's there. I understand all those things. He's going to be the main guy, and they're definitely going to pepper him as much as possible. Romeo Doubs is another guy that I really like a lot. Two guys, actually, Romeo Doubs and Quinton Johnson, and it was two guys that we were going to talk about today, but we kind of got past all that, which is completely okay. With Quinton Johnson, I mean, just to be very clear, he ended right now. He is what? He has how many vacated targets? 246 vacated targets from the Chargers with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Gerald Everett leaving. That's pretty significant in my opinion. He has more than enough capability to and draft capital. I mean, he's the number one there. I understand McConkey's going to be involved, but Herbert can throw the ball. The only difference is it's going to be a little bit of a rushing offense. So I wanted a younger wide receiver group in this case that can still be competitive and still, I want to be in that good old right at the cusp of the playoffs so that I can get in and continue to do well and be, at the top. I want to win, of course, but I know I'm right there. Romeo Doubs is just, he's linked to Jordan Love, and Jordan Love is consistent and plays pretty well with all four young running wide receivers. So I'm pretty happy with that. And Evan Ingram's just, come on, Evan Ingram. He's an older tight end. I'm going to probably have to get another guy at one point, but he is a solid option. And, he will get peppered. I don't think any of his stats next year are going to change. I don't care, with the additions of Gabe Davis and, Brian Thompson. I think he'll be fine. So that's my team.
All right. Yeah. Good stuff. I'll go over mine on Monday if we can. But just quickly got forced into that hero RB build because my mistake on not setting a queue. So make sure you guys set your queues, man. Drafting
most of Rasta's team is actually on my team. Just one pick earlier.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that how that works out? Basically, we're just going to share a team. I think between the two of us, we could build a nice team.
You sniped me for at least 5 times from right.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. You wear it well. Go ahead, read it off. Go ahead, Phil.
I was just gonna say you guys could just be co-managers for each other's team.
Yeah, there you go.
Got the best of both worlds.
No one loses.
Yeah. Right.
So
I definitely don't like drafting next to you. Go ahead, Classic.
Fei Foey goes. Any thoughts on going 0 QB at the turn at the 111, 112, plus at that one turn at the top. So double wide receiver or or wide receiver plus running back. I've been going a lot of Chase Amon-Ra or Bijan there. What do you guys think? And I mean, this is perfect.
Basically, Phil did the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a mock, but I'll be honest. If this is where I was in a real draft, this is probably the build that I would have started with. I'll be honest. I stared down Marvin Harrison for a while. I stared down AJ Brown for a while. To me, I wanted the hero RB because I knew there was no trades in this round, meaning I just didn't feel comfortable having an RB at the turn of the 3-4 turn where like Travis Etienne didn't get back to me. So if you look in the 4th round, Saquon I could have taken, but other than Saquon, I don't feel good about Rachaad White, James Cook, or Achane being my RB1. Right. I'd much rather than be my RB2.
That early. Like that early.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
If you're getting him in the 6th or 7th or something, then
100%.
Then all right. Yeah.
And I think the other thing, the 2 other quick things to consider. Number 1, it's a 3 wide receiver set. So I wanted to make sure I got another wide receiver in there outside of Amon-Ra. But look, I was able to get Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, if my classic, you'll have to check me on this, but Dak Prescott, I believe, was QB5 last season, maybe QB4.
I think it was 4. I think it was 4 or 5.
Okay, but my point being is I'm able to get a guy that's top 5 upside ceiling. We know he's attached to CeeDee Lamb. He's in the 4th round. I've said this a couple times. Kyler Murray's pretty consistently going in the 3rd round. I'm looking for his name on our board. He went at the 212, so that's fine. But I think, Fui, to your question, and I said this, and I'm actually going to be doing some of this content on my show coming up about Superflex and how they get pushed up the board. I said this at the top of our show here tonight. Baker Mayfield is not sexy. He finished inside the top 10 quarterbacks last season. You can see in this draft, he's going in the 7th round. It is not an attractive pick. It's not what you want, but you can find good value at quarterback later. And the other piece, and I won't get too into the details, this is what my show, The Extra Point's all about. The variance between those positions at quarterback is like 15 to 20 points difference. And I remember this because I just put this stat out. Kirk Cousins, where do you guys think Kirk Cousins finished last year? QB what on the season?
Points per game?
Don't cheat. No, total.
Well, wait.
His overall
prior to his injury?
Nope. At the end of the season, Kirk Cousins was QB what?
Well, because if there was 66 starting quarterbacks, I would say I was gonna say like in the teens, like 17, 18.
Well, I was going to say wasn't he prior to his injury? Wasn't he like QB2?
He was.
Yeah, he was going insane.
I was going to say he went out of control.
It's like how Derrick Henry, remember when he got hurt a couple years ago and he stayed like the RB1 for like 5 weeks? He hadn't even played in 5 weeks.
So that's my point is you have a guy that finished QB 24 on the season. He finished as the last of the second of the QB2s, and he only played little over 50-60% of the year. Right. So you can find value in players that are going to be lower, and it may not look great on paper. You may look at your team and like, oh man, I've got I've got Matt Stafford tonight. You're going to be fine as a QB2 because where you're going to win games is at the wide receiver and running back position. If you can really find the differentiators there and the top guys, that's where you're going to end up winning games and ultimately make the playoffs and give yourself a shot to win a championship.
Yeah,
and who'd you win with your Superflex QBs
yeah,
last year?
So I won a championship last year with Jordan Love. I lost Anthony Richardson in week 4. So I had Jordan Love and Russell Wilson.
Jason Stitham.
And exactly in championship week 17, Russell Wilson got benched, and I had to scramble to the waiver wire to get. I'd be honest with you, it was Jarrett Stidham, but Jason Statham would have been nicer than Jarrett Stidham. So.
Right, I would have probably took him if I seen him on the waiver wire over.
But nobody gets excited about seeing Jarrett freaking Stidham in championship week. I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to lose, and I won a championship with him. So it can be done.
And to be honest, you don't have to even have the quarterback there. You could Nye won our dynasty league
just
without a quarterback.
You're
like
just that.
Yeah, he just put guys in that just really, that worked out. I mean, at that point, you're using your bench anyway. That is going to do better than the guys, those throwaway, QBs. Of course, man.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you coming out
on that. You got to feel good at that very specific spot in the ADP right now. I don't think the ADP is going to shift too crazy. Goff might rise a little bit. Dak kind of feels a little bit low for his production.
He is low,
very low.
So right now, as ADP stands, you just have to be comfortable with one of Goff, Prescott, because I don't think you're getting too often. I think there's going to be a good chance that at the 3-4 turn, you're not seeing Goff, Prescott. You might not see either at some point.
No,
so if ADP goes that way, if your personal rankings say you're high on Levis, you're higher on Bo Nix, maybe you're buying into the Bryce is probably not making it back to you at the 5-12 though. You just have to look at how realistic getting some of those guys are, and do you like them enough to be able to reach for them at potentially the 6-1 and then like 7-12, 8-1. Right? There might be a very realistic chance that you just have to take Bo Nix every time at 8-1 at the latest, and you've got to like it. Now, if you hate those players, I think you have to know the risks. This is also a mock. I think the big thing that Phil mentioned, though, is the strategy especially specifically in a slower draft, too. When you're at the turn, you're going to do more trades in the middle, where you can kind of just let value fall to you consistently if you're a value-based drafter. At the turn, if you have a strong feelings about certain players, just go get your guys, even if it costs you a little bit extra. If you're right, you're going to be right. And in a mock, you can't do that. So be careful when you mock these situations and kind of figure out, like, would I be able to go get this guy at a reasonable price? If that's the strategy, you need to go into a real draft from the turn. If you're going to do that strategy, know that you're going to have to make trades later on. So have them in mind.
Yeah. You got to stay water. Always be able to adjust.
Fluid. Well, and Kendall, you say this all the time, and I agree with this 100%. I will give you 100% on this one instead of the 99%. I don't generally play to win in year one. So I'm okay taking Dak Prescott, who I know is going to have good value for the next 2 to 3, probably longer, maybe 5 years. And look, I'll fill it out. You saw it tonight. I filled it out with Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers. Gross. But my team's probably not built to win this year. My top guys are going to be there. Amon-Ra, Bijan, Devonta Smith. They're going to hold their value. I feel good about them in my core. I'm either drafting an early round quarterback in the rookie draft next year, I'm making a trade, or I'm, piecing it together and figuring it out to go a different direction. So I think that's the piece that you have to always remember is the team that you draft with. This is a great piece of advice. At least I think so. I'm about to give it. The thing I think is if you go back, it's a good exercise. Go back to your startup drafts. Whenever your league started, last year, 10 years ago, doesn't matter. Look how many players are on your startup draft that are on your active roster today. If there is more than 50% of your team that is still the same, one of two things is true. Either your team's really freaking good, or you're not making enough trades. You're not making enough moves. And that's, to me, something that's a really good exercise, is go back and look at that startup draft and count the number of guys that are still on your roster today.
Me and Phil are in a league together, and actually Phil had to remind me that I actually need to fill up 50% of my roster.
Yeah, you have a lot. You've got some gaps.
I have about 17 first-round picks over the next 5 years,
You do.
but I have
Yeah,
0 players.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was listening to Sirius XM the other day, and it was with Jeff Mans, and they had one of the callers had 8 of the top 10 first-round picks. And it was just like, what? And he was looking to
That's
get
what
the
I tried to do in our first rookie draft.
No, I remember. Yeah.
I wanted everyone to just watch me draft the entire round. Like, that was my goal. I wanted to trade for every single pick. Yeah, I only got to, I think, 6 or 7. And then I ended up flipping them all. I made 0 of those first round picks and have yet to make a first round pick in that league. So
the other thing I wanted to bring up for Feifei Foey, if you really look at it for the turn. Now, if you went on the
this
turn,
has to be like 30-second take.
I'll do the best I can. Relax. If you drafted a QB, if anything, you're drafting Justin Herbert and Jordan Love at the 112, 20 or 201. And unfortunately, you're overpaying at that point. And then what are you left with? Nothing that you would really want to have otherwise. I don't think. I would prefer to possibly do exactly what Phil did and do what he said. Basically, just this year's kind of shot. Let's move on to next year. And you're still a little, you're still competitive. You still have a good, solid team. But next year, your team could probably be the contender and the one that could be involved. And, you can get that top rookie pick or, trade out or whatever. You'll find a way. Don't try to grab too many guys too early, like especially QB in Superflex. Doesn't always work out.
Best asset, best value. That's what you want to go for. Not filling out a team. All right. Well, there'll be plenty more of that as we continue to break these things down. Of course, we'll be back here on Monday night, actually breaking the rest of the teams down. Frank and I will go through, give our draft grades, give our feedback. Maybe some things we would have done differently, or things that we really liked. So check us out on Monday, 9 p.m. Pacific. A little late. You East Coasters can catch us in the morning. So check that out Tuesday morning for you guys over there. But I do want to, of course, flip the screen over here to our boys. Appreciate it. Before you get out of here, though, Foey, make sure you go sub to these guys' channels too, man. The links are down in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the Fantasy Football Tavern as well as the Extra Point. You'll be able to catch those guys' contents there when they drop them. So turn those notifications on as well. I'll give Kendall the floor here first. Tell them where they can find you and what your content's going to be all about.
Yeah, check me out on YouTube, the Fantasy Football Tavern. Whole idea is, fantasy football. We're really just trying to share our takes over a cocktail. If you're me, I need another one over here. But I tend to be a draft specialist. I'm a big game theory guy. So regardless of format, we're going to be doing a ridiculous amount of mock drafts on the channel. Going to do some underdog live stream drafts as well. And then I just started dropping my series on I play Dynasty much like a little bit of a stock market. I'll find windows of 2 or 3 years where I'm very good, but I don't. In the startups, I'm always playing for pure value accumulation. So we do a lot of market watch, a lot of buy low, sell high throughout the year. We find pockets of time where the market is over or under on a particular player, just due to being a little too emotional about something. And so check those out. Are my running back and wide receiver video dropped. We got tight ends and quarterbacks coming up. But if there's a topic you want me to cover, definitely let me know. If you like mock draft, and come on out.
Awesome. There it is. Links down in the description. And Phil, who dropped his first episode live last night, tell us about the Extra Point, man, where they can find you.
Yeah. So the Extra Point, you can find me on YouTube at the Extra Point. You can find me on Instagram, _extra_point_FFB. The Extra Point is all about the little differences, right? So it's the difference between being a team that's pushing for the playoffs versus a team that's in the playoffs trying to get to that championship and win that ring. I love to trade. We all do. That's why we play Dynasty. So if you're looking for trade values, What are guys realistically worth? You want me to evaluate trades? I'm happy to do that. I'm going to be going through range of outcomes. I'm going to be going through data and metrics to find those little pockets, like Kendall just mentioned, those little pockets of value where you can really differentiate between some of those guys we were talking about tonight, the quarterbacks, the wide receivers. Ultimately, what I wanted to help y'all do is help y'all have not only a great startup draft, but once you have a startup draft, what's your plan? How do I trade to find some value? How do I get myself? Am I a contender? Am I in a rebuild? I'll be highlighting some of the leagues that I'm in and some particular builds that I like. I'm also going to go and highlight some of the rebuilds that I'm in, because we all know in Dynasty at some point we're going to have to rebuild. So come check me out Thursday nights, 7 p.m. PST Pacific time, the Extra Point. Look forward to interacting with you all on the channel, and then message me on Sleeper at P Ruskin if you have any questions you want me to answer. I'd love to bring up your content on the show. Appreciate the support, boys.
For sure. Absolutely, man. So again, we'll have some special guests coming on next month too as well. We have Jim Coventry as well as Lindsay Rhodes joining us here. So we're pretty excited for that. So make sure you guys tune in, have those notifications on. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit those like buttons for us as we continue to grow. And again, thank you guys. We are now over that 1.1 thousand subscriber number. So keep coming, man. If you guys do want to get in leagues with us, we always have those going. I know Phil has Dynasty startups going. I'm sure Kendall can get you in ones as well. Of course, we'll have the Get Right Fantasy listener leagues as well too. So if you want to get in the drawing for those, all you got to do is find a subscriber for us, man. Someone in your league, someone you know, have them hit that subscribe button, leave a comment on one of the videos, this video, or send me a screenshot or something through Sleeper. Both you and whoever you get as a subscriber will get an entry into that. We do like one of those 100-yard races. So basically a drawing. So the top 12, or I think it's like top 8 or whatever it is, will come play against us here at the Get Right Fantasy Network. Yeah. And there's a little cash prize for that as well too. So no entry, but a nice little cash prize to make it interesting. Come take our money if you can. So again, appreciate all you guys, man. We'll be back here on Friday or on Monday. It is Friday. Enjoy your guys' weekends. Be safe. Happy graduation to all those graduating here these next couple weeks, man. Again, my son turned 18 a couple weeks or last weekend. So that's interesting, man. He's graduating on Wednesday. So big shout out to my boy there. Nice. So real proud of him. So I had to get that mentioned out on here. So other than that, man, we'll see you guys later. Of course, for myself, for Classic, for Kindle, for our boy Phil, for Tycoon, he'll be back here next week. And of course, Frank and Dustin, man, all of us here at Get Right, we appreciate you. Classic, cue up the outro song. You guys love it. We'll see you back on Monday.
Wanted to write fantasy is the play, marking nothing but